All right. Well, welcome everybody back to the main room. I know Remo can be a little unsettling if this is your first time on Remo, but don't panic. And if you missed our orientation, I know you got sucked right into the networking session of that. So we're going to do. And Greg, actually, before we have you come on, you're welcome to stay there if you want. We're going to have Juan come up for a minute and do community announcements, and then we will. Talk about things going on in the community and things that are happening. And I just need to make Juan a presenter. And all right, Juan, you should be able to turn your camera on and your microphone on and come. Juan is the general manager of Charlotte Inno here in Charlotte, and he comes every week to talk about community events, what's happening. We're going to give him the floor for just a couple of minutes, and then we'll get right to the Kegside chat with Greg Brown moderating with André. So go right ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. And Greg, I promise I won't take too long here. I am trying to share my screen, so hopefully that's popping up right. So Dan just all right. So anyways, if anybody is not familiar with Charlotte Inno, we have stories, resources, content of all sorts covering the tech and innovation community here. If anybody is familiar with Inno, you'll notice something a little different. We actually just launched a brand new website today, so it's got a very different look and feel, hopefully a lot easier to read, to find the resources that you need. It's got a great set of guides to the community, and a get started page that if you're new to the ecosystem, if you want to learn more about the startups in Charlotte, tech community here, or anything like that, just go check it out, click on the start here button, and it'll give you a lot more information on the ecosystem. So check out the new site. If you're very familiar with it, charlotteinno.com, it'll take you to bizjournals.com/Charlotte/Inno. So check it out. A couple things that we do feature on the website are events and opportunities. And if you sign up for the newsletter, we've got a twice weekly newsletter that highlights all of the stories, events, and opportunities that you need to be aware of. So a few of them that I want to highlight for everybody on the call here today include one, the Pay CLT Design Thinking for Payments with Pathfinders Advertising event. That is tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. So you can find that event on Eventbrite. And again, all of these events you can find in our newsletter at charlotteinno.com. Next week, we've got an event that I'm a little biased, but would say it's along with Packard Place Public House, one of the cannot miss events that happen on a regular basis for you to connect with other people in the ecosystem, and that is Pitch Breakfast. So every month we have an event where we feature 3 companies, each giving their business model pitch, and a panel of experts that get feedback from those panelists. You can join that event next Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. You can find out more information at pitchbreakfast.com or look up Pitch Breakfast on Eventbrite. I'm sure Dan's going to say something about it, but there is the QC InsurTech Community Meetup coming up September 3rd. And that event's going to be that Thursday evening, a fireside chat there with Ken Rosen from Allstate. And if you want to learn more about the InsurTech community, that's going to be one that you're going to want to check out. And this is, we've got some time for this one, but Advent Co-working puts on a great series of events called, we'll call them F-Up Nights, where people talk about times where they've messed up, and mistakes that have been made and what they've learned from them. It's a really fantastic event. And frankly, something that a lot of entrepreneurs can speak to is lessons learned from events, from mistakes that they have made or times that they've effed up. So you don't want to miss this event. The F Up Level Up Night is going to be September 30th. So keep that on your radar. A few opportunities that you're going to want to be aware of. One, if you are a startup, or if you are an investor looking for startups, you want to check out the pitch-space.com website. This is put on by the team at Flywheel. They've created this platform where founders can video their pitch, and investors can go in there and watch some of the startup pitches that are on there. And they've got some events to connect the two. So check out pitch-space.com. Some other programs here. NC Idea is a statewide foundation that offers some grants, and there's 2 grants that have just opened up applications. One here is the NC Idea Seed Grant. This is a $10,000 grant that is given to companies that are still at the full ideation stage, and they're trying to validate that idea. Or, I'm sorry, that's the micro grant. And then the seed grant is a $50,000 grant for companies that are a little bit more advanced and are really looking to sort of find traction and scale. So either a $10,000 grant or a $50,000 grant. You can learn more about these at ncidea.org. These applications are open now through the end of the month. So by August 31st, you're going to want to apply to both of those. And then we've got a few accelerators right now that are accepting applications. On the one hand, we've got the Jules Accelerator, which is for all things clean tech, energy. They're currently accepting applications for cohort 7. And you can learn more about that at Jules, Joules, accelerator.com. There's also the RevTech Labs Class 13 application. Dan, I'm not actually sure what the deadline is on that one, so I'm hoping that it's still open. If it's not, I'm sure Dan will say. Yeah, but that application,
it's technically closed, but if you email me directly, we'll look at you.
All right, there we go. Email Dan if you want to learn more about that one. And last but not least, the IBM the IBM Hyper Protect Accelerator. Cohorts 2 and 3 are accepting applications right now. You can find out more about that at community.ibm.com. That one is right now at calls for entry, and they're giving away $120,000 in IBM cloud credits. And I believe that one doesn't take any equity too. So if that's something that you're interested in, check that out and see if you're interested in that. That is primarily for fintech and health tech startups. So if you're a startup in these spaces, check out these accelerators, check out these opportunities for some grant funding, and check out these events. You can learn more at, again, charlotteinno.com and the Charlotte Inno newsletter. So that's it for me.
All right. Remo's a little slow in getting the mic off mute. Thank you, Juan, for that. Appreciate it. And I forgot when I was here before to go and share with you some of the other slides that we had. So I'm going to do that here. And I'm just going to let Juan go back to being an attendee. And let me share my screen. And we will get this going. And there we go. We was a little slow on the uptake here. So the run of show that I didn't recap coming out of our networking break, we obviously just did the community events and resources. We do the Kegside chat. We end right at 6:15. Actually, Greg, just heads up for you, it actually auto ends at 6:15, so don't run long. And we always kind of wrap up on time. But that's kind of what the rest of our run of show looks like. Juan just did the announcement section, so I missed his intro slide, so sorry about that. And then we want to get feedback from you on Remo. We don't have the same advantage of doing a Zoom poll. And so Jasmine Boyce, who's our community manager and the behind-the-scenes producer of this event. So thank you to Jasmine for all of your help on getting Public House done every week or every couple of weeks. We do it every first and third Wednesday of the month now. I was going to put that in the chat so that you can fill out the survey as we go. We know some of you sometimes have to leave a minute or two early, so we don't want to miss you having the opportunity to give us feedback. So we'll put that in the chat, and you can really answer that at any time that you want. And then, oops, I went through that slide. Tonight's main event, André Walters, I got a chance to say hello to him just for a minute when we were doing our networking section, is our Kegside chat speaker tonight. You've always heard me joke that at Packard Place we don't have a chimney, but we have a keg. And so we do Kegside chats, and that's kind of stuck. And we're rotating, trying to make it a little more interesting, people that maybe you haven't heard from before, and also change up the moderators. And so Greg Brown, who's the administrator of the Charlotte Angel Fund, has agreed to help moderate for us tonight, which we think is great, and we appreciate that. And I think I got the screen sharing off. And so, Greg, if you want to go ahead and turn your camera on and microphone on now, I'll let you do that. And then, André, I'm going to make you a presenter, which means that you should be able to turn your mic and camera on, and then everyone will be able to see you as well. And so, Greg, I'm going to turn it over to you to do whatever kind of intro or setup you want. And enjoy the Kegside chat, everybody. Appreciate you being here, Andre.
All right, absolutely.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Dan. Hey, Andre, good to see you again.
Hey, Greg. Good to see you.
Cool. So you're the man who we're interested in this evening. So be prepared to talk. My goal is to speak as little as possible here.
No
Why
problem.
don't you start out? Give folks, say, a 2 to 3 minute kind of bio on yourself, your background, to set context for the conversation.
Sure. Born in Brooklyn, New York. Left there when I was about 4 or 5. Raised in Wilmington, Delaware. So grew up in that area around Philadelphia. So I'm an Eagles fan. Yes, I am. Got no problem with the Panthers, though. So we're good. Went to school, University of Delaware for undergrad. Got a degree in English, and always knew I wanted to go to law school. So ended up going to law school, University of Baltimore School of Law in Maryland. The only 2 law schools in Maryland. And I didn't get into University of Maryland, but my wife did. My then girlfriend, then fiance, now wife. So I didn't get into University of Maryland. So I went to the other school in Maryland, luckily. And the rest is kind of history. And from there, took a job right out of law school with a commercial lending firm, doing commercial finance, doing deals for banks in there at the time, commercial real estate transactions. This was 2006-ish, 2007. And after a while, realized that that wasn't me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all, actually. Always wanted to work in sports and entertainment. And in fact, after my second year in law school, did an internship with BET, Black Entertainment Television in Washington, D.C. And it was there that kind of really sort of stoked that fire in terms of that world of sports and entertainment. And so from there, one day, the story goes, some of you may have heard it, but just not being happy where I was and deciding one day I wanted to be in sports in Charlotte, so really naive, thinking I could get a job just like that. And through a cold call, ended up getting a job with the then Charlotte Bobcats. Made a call to the then general counsel. He was expecting a call that day, believe it or not, from a guy named André, who makes suits, and he got me first. And after a series of conversations, next thing I know, I got hired to work for the team. So that's how I got to Charlotte.
Nice. So first of all, congratulations on the hustle, right? And I'm glad he got your call.
Yeah.
Before suit.
Me too.
Suit André.
Me too. Absolutely.
A little bit about working in professional sports. So you got into sports entertainment, what you wanted to do. Was it everything you hoped it would be? It
was, actually, believe it or not, it was. My early story, funny story, the last game of the 2007 season, which was my first season with the team. And I'm in the office by myself, everybody else is in the arena getting ready for the night. And next thing I know, I hear this whistling and snapping down the hall, and I look up, and it's Michael Jordan. And I'm thinking to myself, is this a dream? This is ridiculous, right? How did I get here from Wilmington, Delaware? But I introduced myself to him, and after a while, actually, I got to know Michael really well. When you guys didn't hear the years we made the playoffs, we made the playoffs one year when we had Steven Jackson that first year, and I was a part of that. I was a part of that whole transaction and deal. And, at the time we didn't have a capologist, so to speak. And they said, hey, Andre, you deal with the CBA. So why don't you do the salary cap stuff too? So I used to deal with the salary cap and the spreadsheets and things like that to present to Michael and the basketball execs in addition to my regular job. But it was great. I always tell people, if I had to have a job, that's the job, right? That was the dream job. But for me, I always had my sights on something just a little bit bigger. And so I decided to make some moves.
Yeah. So talk about, if you wouldn't mind, so what ultimately made you decide to leave what maybe for you and for many people would have been their dream job. It would have been easy to walk away from because it was a heck of an opportunity to get to do it, to be able to do that in the first place. What convinced you that taking that step away was the right thing?
Something was pushing on me for a while, believe it or not. It was in part a feeling. It was another part watching a Social Network movie with Zuckerberg, and I was just motivated. And then I always had these ideas. So I felt like, I wasn't just a lawyer, right? I felt like I had more to offer, and I wanted to let my creativity loose But I knew I needed more training. And so while I was with the team, I decided to go back to school to get my master's in business administration from the University of North Carolina, Keenan Flagler, through their MBA at UNC program, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. And after I went through that program, while I was going through that program, I got some confidence to think that, you know what, I think I can do this. I think I can run my own company. And I said, I had this idea for this platform called Inno. And it was really with that idea that I said, you know what, I told my wife, it took me about a good year before I finally made the jump, because through a series of events, I got promoted at the team. I went from a director to a senior director to a vice president. And it became really hard to say, all right, you're going to leave this job and this money to go do this. But I told my wife one week, never forget, we had our senior executive meeting one morning, and I called her and I said, you know, I think I'm going to leave my job soon. And that was a Monday morning. And by Monday afternoon, I called her and said, hey, I did it. I told him I'm leaving this week. Okay. So it took me 2 weeks to leave, obviously. I gave him notice, but she was like, okay. But, you know, you're never fully ready, I guess is the point, right? So I just wanted to do it, take the Band-Aid off, and let's go. Let's see what I got.
Yeah. At some point, you got to jump in.
That's it.
And look, Lewis and Clark probably didn't have the whole journey mapped out when they started.
That's right.
Right? They knew the first few miles.
That's right.
Right. And the rest of it, they're going to figure out on the way.
Exactly right. Exactly
but
right.
You got to decide you want to take the trip.
Exactly.
So tell us about, you mentioned Inno. So that I know you left the Bobcats to start Inno. Tell us a little bit about that company. What were they doing? I
saw an opportunity. During this time, it was 2013, something like that. And I saw an opportunity in the world of social media where there was a space, I thought, for leveraging the micro influencers, right? So not the sort of huge celebrities and folks you see. And at the time, Instagram was just starting to kind of bubble up. But, you know, I felt like people had this power amongst their network to actually help businesses to drive sales. But you had to capture or bottle up this word of mouth marketing in a way that was beneficial for both the user and the businesses. And so I decided to create sort of a social commerce platform of sorts that was designed to be truly organic, but at the same time enabled regular people basically to get real currency through regular transactions in the platform, just based on their ability to share products, services, and experiences with people that they knew. That's why we called it Inno, right? And so we went about that really hard. I mean, I gave it everything I had. We did it for 4 years, actually, before I finally made the decision that, you know what, I think it's time to wind it down, because these things cost a lot of money, right? You know, it was burning cash tremendously, and that was tough after a while. That was really tough. So had to make a pivot.
Had you raised capital from investors for Inno?
I did. Actually, I raised some money. A lot of it came from myself and my wife and my in-laws and then folks in the community. Actually, somebody's on the call today, Manuel, who was one of my investors as well. And, you know, I think all of us, though, we had a very similar vision in terms of what it could be. But the world is really hard. It's really hard to build a startup. And, you know, a lot of things have to go your way. And after a while, it was just we couldn't raise cash fast enough in order to keep it rolling. And it was after about probably my 30th pitch for Inno that something happened, something changed. And that's what led me into the world of Duck Donuts.
So what is it that changed? What was that event?
So it's weird. So we went on a pitch trip in the car to Dayton, Ohio, right? Through a contact of my sister's, we got wind that somebody there would be interested in listening to our pitch about Duck Donuts. Now, a week before that, the people that were on my team for Inno told me, they said, hey, André, have you ever had Duck Donuts? And I go, nah, what's that? I'm thinking, all right, it's just donuts. They go, I'm telling you, it's the best donuts ever, right? And they said, we're going to bring you some tomorrow. And I said, okay, cool. I said, just make sure you have chocolate frosted. It's my favorite, right? Like, I love chocolate frosted everywhere I go. They said, okay, we'll bring it. When they brought it the next morning, Greg, I lied to you not. First of all, I held the box. It's like everything's slow motion, right? And I'm holding the box. It is warm. I lift up the top. I pick up my donut, and I'm staring at it, and I'm going, what in the world is this? And then I took a bite. That one bite changed my entire world. literally. And this is during Inno. So fast forward to this trip. So I'm pitching to these guys, and I gave what I thought was the best pitch for Inno I'd ever given. And when it was all said and done, I realized these guys aren't going to invest in Inno. These were franchise guys, right? And they were having this conversation about these pizza franchises that they were invested in. And I said to them right there in that moment, I said, I don't know about pizza, but what you should get into is this thing called Duck Donuts. You know, they didn't have it in the Midwest. About a week later, I'm thinking nothing of it. I get a call and they're asking me, hey, André, same guys, do you have a contact at Duck Donuts? Now, at this point, I'm crazy, right? So I had to actually apply for a franchise for Duck Donuts and got rejected because they already had an owner in Charlotte. I said, oh, whatever, right? So I told them, no, just the people that rejected me. They said, okay. But then I was on LinkedIn later that day, literally. And next thing I knew, the contact, the CEO of Duck Donuts pops up, right? Using their algorithm, pops up. So I sent him a connection request. He connects that day. Later that day, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? If he's connecting, he might be by his phone. So I sent him a message. He replies that day, right? The next thing I know, I'm on a call with them the following week. And I called the guys back from Ohio and said, hey, I got a contact for Duck Donuts. It's the CEO. And they're like, really? Long story short, those guys ended up being the early investors for me in my Atlanta Duck Donuts. And a year later, believe it or not, the owner of the market decided that, hey, he was gonna sell, asked me, was I interested? And of course I was interested. That's how we ended up acquiring Charlotte in addition to Atlanta.
Nice. And what year was that you made the move from Inno to running the Duck Donuts?
That was 14, 15, basically somewhere in that range. And then in 2016 is when everything was a full go for Duck Donuts.
Got it. So running a Duck Donuts, the business itself is dramatically different than Inno.
It is.
Right?
Yep.
How would you describe the differences and the similarities in running two businesses that are conducting very different business?
Yeah, good question. I mean, so with Inno, I mean, that was something we created from scratch, built from scratch, no sort of definitive idea that people would ever truly respond to it, obviously, right? Versus donuts, where people have a familiarity with it right away, right? Especially when you have a franchise where people are already familiar with the brand. It's like come in with just a little bit of a head start, if you will, so to speak, versus, I mean, every single thing, every system, everything for, Inno, we had to create, we had to build it. Which is just a different experience. What is similar, no matter what business you're in, you need a team. You need good people to help you actually do it, no matter what. So whether we're talking about a high growth tech venture, or we're talking about Duck Donuts franchise, either way, you need good people. And the other thing is that, both scenarios should be mission focused, right? And that's the biggest thing that I learned. That was the only thing that probably kept me going most days for Inno. I really, really, really wanted this to be delivered for people who I felt whose influences were being taken advantage of, so to speak, right? And so that was our mission there. And in our mission with Duck Donuts, even though we sell donuts for our group, which is Free Fenix, myself and former Bobcats player Derek Brown, who's my partner, Free Fenix, our goal was really to, enhance lives. That's our mission. And so that's what we spread throughout our whole organization. So we have all of our folks lined up with our mission. And like we also had to have a set of values that we operate by. And so same thing when it comes to Duck Donuts, right? We have our sort of values of respect, communication, integrity, independent thinking, and winning. And we preach that over and over again to try and get the services that we're really seeking for our customers.
Yeah. How's COVID been for the donut business? Is that it's been great? It's been horrible? How's it been?
Tough, very tough, right? When it first hit, it was a shock to everyone's system. I mean, I think that we were all just completely caught off guard. But I can say I was really proud of the franchise. I was proud of my team here, both in Charlotte and Atlanta, because we adapted pretty quickly, to COVID. And so just like everybody else, when you look at our charts during that time period in March, it looks pretty bad. Looks kind of like the stock market, right? And so sales were down 70, 80% at the lowest point at one point. But since then, we worked our way back. We definitely worked our way back. We had to adapt, so we don't have the same kind of sit down, spend your whole day in Duck Donuts type of environment. We had to move into a social distancing mode and mask mode and making sure we deliver the product safely for our customers, but also keep it safe for our employees as well, right? To give them an environment that they feel good coming into. So it's been a challenge, but I can say that it's forced us to innovate. It's forced us to adapt. And one of the things that came out of it was, hey guys, like delivery needs to be a huge part of what we do in our business. And so we're actually in a process to be announced pretty soon with a company called Wave, used to be called Scoop M. We're doing a partnership with them where they will be Duck Donuts personal delivery service, essentially. So you'll be able to order directly through Duck Donuts to have your donuts delivered to you versus going through a third-party service. You'll have it straight through us. So that came about and was accelerated because of COVID. So, I always say, man, there are two sides to it, right? And you got to look at both sides, right? You got to look for the silver lining.
Yeah, I believe, look, change creates opportunity.
Absolutely.
Right. So even if the whole, let's say the whole market for buying donuts gets a little bit smaller than it was, if you're the one who figures it out, right? Even if the market for donuts shrinks by 20%, if you pick up market share, you can net win in that.
Exactly right. And that's what you focus.
So
exactly.
You gotta just deal with it.
Yep, that's right.
Andre, what has being an entrepreneur taught you about yourself?
Yeah,
what
I think
you learned about you as a person.
I learned that I could take stress. I could take it really well. And I can manage stress. I think the biggest thing about being an entrepreneur, and this is for anybody, for any business, it doesn't matter. Resiliency and perseverance to me are really at the top when it comes to most important traits. All right. It will not always go smoothly. The ups and downs of entrepreneurship they're insane. Especially when you're a founder of something, you create something because, not many people know the actual burden that the founder deals with on a day-to-day basis. Right. And it's a lot. It can be a lot, which is why you have to be mission focused. That's the only thing sometimes that will sustain you. Right. It's just really believing in what you're creating and what you're trying to create. But it really taught me that, I got it in me. What I thought when I left the team, I have it in me. I'm still, my book is not done yet. I got a lot I want to do still, but I do feel like I'm a long way away from that guy who made that first decision to leave. But you just have to stick with it. You have to stick with it.
One of the people on the call submitted this question, which is a great one.
Sure.
You talked about values.
Yeah.
And values for your business. How do you make those real? How do you make those evident on a day-to-day basis in the business versus just on a plaque on the wall and nobody ever pays attention to it? How do you make that part of what you do? Great
question. And the one word I would give you is incentives, right? People function and they behave in accordance with their incentives, right? And so when for example, for us, our employees, we want to incentivize their work and their behavior around our values. So for example, communication. We may say, hey, we want you to say, welcome to Duck Donuts when someone comes in, and we're going to randomly monitor for that and score you for that. And ultimately you get the behavior that you're looking for. So it's really important to weave it into the fabric of your operations by making sure that people have incentives to deliver on it. And then you just reinforce and you have to practice it. Right. So, when I talk about respect, of course, I want my employees to respect my customers. I want them to respect each other. But I also have to treat them with that same respect anytime we have difficult conversations. And you have to demonstrate it consistently. And eventually people realize, OK, that's our culture. That's what we stand for. And then you do everything you can tactically to consistently and constantly reinforce it.
Got it. Everybody makes mistakes, right? We all do. I got a long list of them. What's a mistake that you've made in one or more of your startups that just you'll never make again? That thing's been burned into your brain, and boy, it's never again.
You said
Tell
burn.
us about one of those.
I say burn rate, right? And I say ultimately, you know what? You can have all the cash in the world, but you better manage those expenses extremely well, right? The biggest thing I learned is that it's really all in the beginning about runway. Okay, because if you give yourself enough time, you could bump into success at times, right? You have to work hard, but you got to give yourself a runway so that you give yourself a real chance. And so in the beginning, you know, I hired too many people initially, for sure, right? And what we should have done was we should have just, you know, put all our energy into getting the product together and ultimately running with the product and making sure that people really love this product that we were putting out there. And then let that drive our next steps. So, for example, now I'm the founder. I created this new venture called the Fenix Options Club, right? Where I'm coaching people on trading stock options. I've been doing it for a while. My first year out of work from the Bobcats, I made more money in that first year because I had time to trade stock options than I had probably the year prior in salary, right? And so I've taken all those lessons and some B-school learnings and turned it into a community of people that are really trying to understand how to trade options. And this started with a conversation with one guy who called me and said, "Hey, Andre, can you teach me everything you know about trading stock options?" And I go, "Sure." Right. And after a few days of coaching him, I realized, I think I got something here. I've always wanted to do something like this. I'm going to create a community called the Fenix Options Club. And that was 2 months ago. And I'll tell you that now we're at 80 members already for this club. Right. And it keeps growing. And so we run these every other week on Zoom, basically. And it didn't cost us really anything to get going. But yet we have revenue flowing and we have a real venture now, which is really cool. So I learned a lot in terms of, hey, when you're trying to scale something, start really small and, you know, increase as you go. Okay. You don't have to do it all up front. Build as you go.
What I would guess, given your story, that you've had people who are working in corporate America ask for your advice, because you're somebody who's done that. You've been in corporate America, you've stepped out. What do you think those people need to ask themselves before they make that step? How should they make that decision? Whether it's right for them.
What do you want? Right? So a lot of people may think about entrepreneurship in terms of money. I would suggest to you that's actually the absolute wrong thing to think about. Right? The thing that I actually value the most when it comes to entrepreneurship, one word, freedom. Right? Freedom. That's what I seek. And you have to get to a point where your desire to seek, in my case, for example, freedom outweighs the comfort that you desire with your corporate job. Right? Because that's really what it is. I mean, it's certainty that every other week you get a check, which is cool. But what do you really want? And what's really holding you back from making that jump? Because it's usually just some fear, right? And it's understandable. It's fear. But you can overcome that fear if you desire what's on the other side of it enough. And that's always been my mentality. You know, you have it in you, especially people working in corporate America. You know, a lot of people, they're smart, right? Like they're not, you know, stupid, right? So they have the ability to do it. Now it's just, can they sort of, you know, get the confidence and the courage to take that step? It's only going to happen when you do it. There's no other way to do it. You just got to do it. That's what has to happen.
So I got one more question for you, and then we'll let Dan and the crew wrap this up.
Okay.
Do you believe can you learn to be an entrepreneur in any way other than just being in it?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. You know, first of all, I mean, you have to go in it eventually, but can you prepare yourself, I guess, in some way to be an entrepreneur? I think so. There are plenty of, I like to read bios, right? I like to read a lot of bios about, you know, titans, really, the business. And when you read their backgrounds, you get inspired. You start to realize, okay, their lives were very similar to mine before they decided to take a step. So you can start there, but yeah, at some point, you just got to do it. You just got to jump in and you got to be committed to just going all the way and just burn the bridge right behind you. Keep going forward. That's what you have to do.
Got it. So real quick, and then Dan, I promise we'll shut up before 6:15. One other question that got submitted. You might see it here on chat.
Yep.
Andre. So Ace's question, what was the better option, the franchise or your original idea?
Wow. You know, I don't know. I love them both, man. I can't say one is better than the other. You never know. You may find me back in that world at some point. So you never know. Surprise announcement. I see it in the Q&A for Dan. So we actually are just about to sign on the line tomorrow for a new salad franchise called Salata that will be uptown Charlotte. And my partner and I, Free Fenix, it'll be located right at the Ally building, right off of Tryon Street there. So Salata, for those who work uptown, you got a real lunch spot now. It's like the made-to-order version of salads, basically. The other side of Duck Donuts, other spectrum. So I told Dan, I promised Dan I would announce that. So there you go.
So you're not just in one niche with regard to healthy or non-healthy food. You're all
not at all. No. We're out. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Hey, André, thank you.
Absolutely.
It's been great. It's been great catching up with you. You and I haven't seen each other for a while.
Yep.
And thanks for sharing your story with everybody.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, that was great, guys. André, thank you for being with us. And Greg, thank you for moderating. You guys can, if you want to, you can go ahead and turn your cameras and mute, and you'll disappear here. But really appreciate you being here. And we're trying to shake it up with different speakers and different moderators. So let us know if you have ideas for other speakers or people to moderate. That would be wonderful. And I think now we know we have the trifecta of salads, donuts, and beer at Packard Place. So, I mean, who's not going to want to come back to Uptown Charlotte? So as we talk about in our public houses, we like to keep short and kind of give you people a taste and want to connect more. We're doing this in the first and third Wednesdays. So look forward to having you on our next public house. And until then, thanks everyone for joining us. Really appreciate it. See you later.